welcome to the Not Superheroes Just Dads podcast. No, we can't fly. No, we can't shoot lasers or pick up giant buildings. But what we can do is help set the foundations for our families, be presents for our kids, and combat generational cycles. On this podcast, we dive into everything dad related, from the struggles we deal with as fathers to what our favorite thing to barbecue is. Hello, I am Sean Laurie. I hope you guys are doing great. Man, we're now what? We're now in 2025, because by the time you guys hear this, either we'll be, yeah, it'll be New Year's Eve or now 2025. So blessings to you guys. Hope you guys are doing well. Before we start, remember, make sure you like, subscribe, tell a friend. I appreciate the support so much. And I'm excited, like always, guys, I'm always excited to have a guest, but I'm excited for this one, guys, because I was surprised. I wasn't sure. I was a little nervous. I'll be honest with y'all. I was nervous to get this amazing man, teacher, father, mentor. I'm sure to many people. To get Jeffrey. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Sean. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So what I like to do a lot of times is icebreakers, and so my icebreaker for you is, what is a goal of yours? Or no, I'll put it like this. What is something that you would like to accomplish that you have not yet um, in 2025?
Wow. Something that I haven't accomplished yet, but I want to accomplish in 2025.
Yes. I can
Let's see.
change
I
it if it's
gotta.
tricky.
It's tricky. I feel like, there's a lot of things. You get to be my age, and
Hmm.
there's things that you definitely want. Things I definitely want to do in 2025. One of them is to work less and celebrate life more.
Mm,
I
I
feel like
like
I'm a
that.
bit of a workaholic when it comes to my
Mm,
my personal life and my professional life. And
mm.
I know in 2025 there's a way of life I want to live that's going to be a lot different than how I've been living it the last decade.
Wow.
I'd say
I
last
like
decade.
that.
So
I like
that's
that.
for me that's a big goal.
Yeah. No,
Big
that's
goal.
hey, that's an amazing goal. You answered that perfectly for me. So I love that. Today, guys, we're gonna be talking about a little bit of everything. Um, but Jeffrey's actually a teacher as well, so we're gonna talk about a little bit of those things as well. But first, I want to ask you, because I know you're a father. What is how many kids do you have?
One.
One. Okay. So the my question to you is, what has been the most rewarding thing of being a father for you?
Watching development. You
Mm,
watch someone grow from a child into an adult and seeing them carve out their own pathway, make their own way for themselves, in a
mm,
way that's really. And it's like education too, and that's one of the things I definitely really want to talk about today. When you see the development from one point in the journey to 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and you've seen where they've gone from one place to another, and they've picked up a great deal of ownership. When a child does that, it's amazing to see all the different pieces come together. You pour
mm,
so much of yourself into a young person or your child, and to see them take what you've given them and then have them build upon that with things that they're experiencing themselves or charting out their own experiences and creating their own pathways for themselves is one of the most beautiful things you could possibly see anywhere. If
yeah.
you're an adult that works with children or if you're a parent.
I like that. So you, like you say, you only have one child, but what was like, I guess, in that process? Because obviously, there's not no real handbook when it comes to being a parent. Like, what is something that stood out to you that was like one of the most challenging things that you was able to overcome?
Those teenage years are interesting.
Yeah.
Um, you know, when a child's trying to find their way, they're really trying to find their identity, trying to find out who they are. You either have to step back and let them figure some things out, which was is my style, um, because the ownership, the authenticity of that learning experience is formidable,
Mm.
even in those formative years. Um, you hear a lot about lawnmower parents and helicopter parents. I'm not sure if you've ever heard those expressions before. And, a helicopter parent is one that hovers and is really close and wants to make sure that their child doesn't fail too much. And then a lawnmower parent is one that takes down all the obstacles so that they've got a free lane to go through life. But it was one of those things where figuring out a way to balance between, I really want my child to invest in failure to
Mm.
some levels. That it doesn't hurt. That's not too much of a detriment, but that they're able to learn their own lessons, and that definitely suit them. And it's a philosophy I take with me in the classroom, in my work. If I'm working with students in the community, if I'm, making sure that, okay, what did you learn from that experience? Step back and say, well, reflect a little,
Mm.
and let's take a look at some of the restorative pieces that come into the learning that you had, whether you made a mistake or you were trying to make things right, and it's quite a balance, um,
Yeah.
and it's the balance between tough love and just having empathy and wanting to embrace your child.
So how did you? Because I mean, I hear your demeanor. I'm like, yeah, you're definitely a teacher. But how did you choose your career path, and what helped you stay motivated to stick to it? Because especially now, right?
Yeah.
Teaching. Well, I don't know what grade. Maybe you're not dealing with the teens, or maybe you are. I don't know. But well, how did you choose that career path, and I guess what motivated you to stick to that path?
I spent a few years in Africa. Spent a couple years there, and
Mm.
after studying some engineering, wanted to go away and figure out what I wanted for my life, figure out how I wanted to give back, and the experience of working with young people who didn't have a lot, who
Mm.
embraced the joy of just living and the small
Mm.
things of learning made me decide to choose this career path as an educator. I'm currently in my 30th year in education.
Wow.
Um, and every year, it's there's something new I'm still learning, even in 30 years, even as the old guy on campus. And I feel like the old guy. Most of my colleagues are in their 20s or 30s,
Mm.
and it's really nice to be able to pass on some of the knowledge that I've accumulated. And it's stuff that you learn. You can't learn this in school. If you're out there teaching and you're working with people, you're working with parents, you pick up on a lot of different personalities that really mold the journey. Some years it helps you decide whether or not you want to stick around with it. Sometimes it doesn't. There was a point in my career I really thought the chapter was going to turn on me, and that was right around the summer of 2020, where I really felt like,
Mm.
maybe it's time to move on from education and go towards what I had originally studied and move into engineering. Um, but something happened in 2020, uh, in a teaching gig I had for about a year that really changed the course of my life. It renewed my faith in what I was doing. There
Mm.
was some confirmation in this is where I needed to be. This is what I needed to learn. I needed to go through these particular experiences to be able to build upon the next chapter of what I'm doing, the next of the trajectory. And it was, yeah, it was there was some real power behind everything.
Mm.
And what I've learned and what I've been learning, what I am learning. Um, there's power in being able to give back, even at my level in my career. Um, to still feel like you can give back, that you're still contributing to whole communities of people,
Mm.
no matter what school it is or city you're in. It's the power of giving back is still exist, ex, tongue tied, still exists,
Yeah.
and it's the gift that's meaningful to me and meaningful to my life, that I've been given purpose in this.
That's dope. So, what age group or what grade?
Oh, yeah. I currently work at a K through 8 independent school.
Okay.
And I work
Okay.
with mostly grades fourth grade to junior high.
Oh dang. Okay. So
Yeah.
you're spread out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm an administrator, but I
Mm.
also have assigned classes. I teach STEAM to students in grades four all the way to eighth grade. I teach everything from
Wow.
robotics to computer science, data science,
Wow.
um, engineering, design, problem solving frameworks like design thinking that allow you to use empathy as the platform for being able to solve real world problems.
That's dope.
It's quite a ride.
Yeah. That's. So I'm like, dang. That's yeah. You be if we was wherever you're at, my son would be you would be his teacher basically because he's in fourth grade. Um. So what like how did you? Because I look at it like being a father and being a teacher similar. So for you, have you been able to like kind of connect that, or how has you being a father maybe influenced your career, um, or work ethic in the sense?
It's I find that I really care about young people, their
Mm,
development, where they're going, and giving them some sort of direction for their lives. There's a real, like I said, there's a real gift in that. Um, it fills my cup. Some days it
mm,
overflows.
mm,
About 8 years ago, something I wanted to share. About 8 years ago, I had an experience, just a rough experience. It was the first day of school, and an administrator was messing around in my classroom and moved things around. And I'm like, you really need to ask me before you just move things around. I was setting up for a lesson, and I let it ruin my day.
mm,
And it was the first day of school. Things had just gotten underway. And by the middle of the day, I was sitting in my office, and the office has a partition that's of glass. So
mm.
students on the other side of my office, it was a classroom happening, and there was a student in there who was looking at me, and he kept going like this, like doing the smile thing, and I'm like, "Come on, are you looking at me?" He said, "Smile." He kept saying that, smile. I'm like, okay, so I smiled and everything. And at that point, it was an epiphany. I'm like, I am going to write one thing, one story every day from school to show myself, to speak to myself that this is
Mm.
where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And ever since 2016, if you see me on social media, I've got one thing that I've shared, something a student may have said, an experience I may have had that was meaningful, that was humorous, that
Mm.
hopefully would inspire somebody else. So I've got tons of stories, one every day. I think every educator does, where
Mm.
a student made a difference in my life, so much so that I either recorded or I remembered something they had said that was meaningful to the
Yeah.
day or meaningful to the work.
Mm.
And I look back, when I look at my memories, I look back at all these little stories that I write for the day, and it's amazing. I'm like, I said that, or that kid said that, and I try to remember which student, because I don't write their names. I try to remember which student said that. Later
Yeah.
on, if I find that student and they're in a different place, I'm like, remember when you said this? And they're like, I said that. I'm like, yeah, you said that. Yeah. So, yeah, it's the daily grind, but it's what you get out of it, and each story uh, is an incredible chapter in the
Mm.
journey of this particular work that brings me so much joy.
That's dope. So, actually, I want to go back real quick because you said what helped you or inspired you to teach was also when you went to Africa, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like how was that experience like overall, just being there? Because you know, I've heard it before. I've thought about maybe traveling there, and just how was that experience? Because I feel like that's a big deal. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like that's a big deal, and it's pretty dope that you was able to experience that. Just like the culture, just like you said, you're able to kind of teach and guide and things like that. Just that overall, like, can you just share a little bit more about that whole thing?
A great way to describe it. This is now officially 30 years ago.
Wow.
A great way to describe it is, um, man, it's, I thought I had the words. I don't have the words.
Oh,
Working,
that's okay.
it was in Kenya, but working with
Okay.
those young people, it's those small things. It didn't matter what it was. Working with students in America is one thing. Working in in communities that don't have a lot of resources,
Yeah.
that are just grateful for the presence of a smiling face, that are just
Mm.
grateful to learn the next thing, or grateful for them if on the other hand being able to for them like to teach Swahili to me, or to pick up some sort of different culture aspect of what's going on in their community. Uh, it was like some sort of it almost seemed transactional, but it was the most beautiful sort of transaction you can have with groups of people.
Mm.
And it was being able to employ small engineering skills, working with raw materials, kind of, especially the things I'm doing right now. When I teach a STEAM class, students, I bring in the cardboard and glue guns and a few other raw materials, and we see what we can build to solve a particular problem. And it's that's exactly how my career started.
Mm.
Working in Kenya, particularly where you're working in small villages, it's a tight knit community. You're working with translators, you're working with various people who um, just want to learn, just want to be happy,
Mm.
imbued a joyful spirit, a joyful heart. Um, so it was never a dull moment. Being able
Wow.
to carry that back to the States, and begin a career in teaching was pretty much the jump off from the
Mm.
platform to where I wanted to be, or how I wanted to begin my teaching career. So I started my teaching career teaching high school. That was, in the hood. And I had a lot of fun working with kids. In fact, my first teaching gig, I'm from San Diego originally. It was at the rival high school. So, when
Okay.
students ask, what high school did you go to? And I said, well, I went to this school. So when I say rival, I'm not talking about just within the area, within the neighborhood, but we're talking
Yeah.
like gang rivals, particularly gangs
Okay.
that claim whatever from one school to the other.
Yeah.
Being able to have fun with that, and
Yeah.
at the time, being young enough to be able to connect and really relate um, to students. Uh, Now that
Yeah.
I'm much older, it's a different sort of connection, uh, especially working at a school where actually there's not a lot of people my color. It's mostly Asian students, about
Okay.
48% Asian, but you still find that you bring something to them, regardless of my racial ethnic background.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you was doing high school, were they trying to test you, or was it at that time you were kind of cool hip teacher, so they didn't bother you too much?
Yeah, well, high school, I've taught high school on a lot of different occasions.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, working at a high school is, having to work at a high school. Uh, yeah, they test you. Middle school, they test you.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
want to see how far they could push you. And,
Yeah.
if I knew what I knew now, or had the patience that I have now, it definitely would have been different.
Mm.
You can be able to battle them toe to toe, clap back with them whenever you can. Nowadays, I'm old enough to clap back and be like, yeah, well, here, you know, try this on for size.
Yeah. You,
What's cool is the respect is still there. If it doesn't come
mm,
immediately, it comes later because they know what your intentions are, and you're authentic with them
yeah.
as you're building relationships.
I like that. And something that you said stuck out to me too is when you said what inspired you when you was out there in Africa and they were just happy, to see you with a smile, right? And then you said, I think you said 2016 was difficult, and all she wanted was you to smile. And so it's just kind of funny how it resurfaced, right? And how it was like a reminder, like, let me get back to why I
Yeah,
was doing this in the first place. So I think that's one of those surreal
right.
moments, those dope moments where, for me, I look at it like, man, God was kind of like, hey, you're in your purpose. Remember why you're doing this.
Right.
So yeah, man, I thought that
Yeah.
was dope. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's really cool that you made that connection. I really hadn't thought of it that way. You know,
Yeah.
what's funny is just the other day, right before we went on winter break, I laughed at something a student said, and another student said, "Dr. Flagg, you're laughing." I'm like, "Yeah, I laugh." She's like, "No, we don't see you laugh all the time. It's really cool."
Mm.
She's like, "You make jokes, but you don't laugh. It's just different when you're laughing." I'm like,
Mm.
"Yeah." So students notice. That's one thing that hasn't changed over the years. Kids definitely pick up on a lot of energy, and even when you try to match theirs in the classroom, whether it's some sort of silliness or whatever, I think they either appreciate it or they find they find it refreshing.
I like that. And so to now to go back, I know I went back. Now I'm going back forward. um,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. So, like you said, the connections with being a father and a teacher in the sense is like somewhat connected. I was wondering if you ever dealt with this, but like seeing a student and you see like obviously every child has potential, but you see so much potential in this child, and maybe it could be the friends they're hanging out with, maybe it could be their environment at home or whatever it is, but you just see like, man, like, there's times where, man, this kid is super intelligent, or this kid is really just so creative in this area, but yet it's almost like they're being held back. Have you ever dealt with that? And if so, how did you either encourage or try to have them realize they can do more, they can accomplish more?
Oh, that's a big part of the job. I mean, if you're able to bridge that connection and make a
Mm,
student realize what their potential is, you can show them where to look, but they're going to know they have to figure out what they're going to find when they get there. And that's in a lot of the different projects and lessons that I set up for them. Um,
mm,
Students start to realize maybe I can do this. My dissertation was all about the access and equity of computer science among middle school girls, particularly of color. And a lot of that had to do with why aren't we seeing more of them take an interest in computer science? We're seeing it. The numbers are starting to come up quite a bit these days because they're seeing themselves. They're seeing other professionals in this particular field, not just as athletes, but we're seeing them as scientists, as doctors, as artists, as analysts,
mm.
real scientists. And once they see what others can do that look like them, and particularly if they're able to meet those challenges in the classroom, then they find, you know, I really enjoy what I'm doing. One good example of that is I like putting together classes where students can pursue a passion project.
Mm.
And that's been everything in the last decade, from a student just recently wanting to make a claw machine out of cardboard and hydraulics with syringes, or making a back brace for students, for young people who don't like to wear their back braces because
Oh
they have
wow,
childhood scoliosis. So that
that's
meant learning engine. Yeah,
yeah, scoliosis.
yeah, that meant learning engineering skills, right? That meant learning how to design, how to embrace an iteration process and embrace what it means to fail if things don't go very well.
Mm.
These are the kind of exciting things I like to see. Students take their ideas and realize I don't just have to dream about them. I can see them in action. I can see them happening in different phases. And that's when young people can really see what they're really capable of, what they really can do, and they can find success, and even find success in impossible failure, and
Mm.
feel good about it because they reflected on what happened. They learned about what's going on. They learned where things went sideways and pick things up again, or decide either it's not for me or I need to take this in a different direction.
Mm. I like that. I I wanted to ask you for, because I was thinking about, especially in the black community a lot of times. I'm sure in others as well, but we, especially I'll focus more so on the young boys, like high school, middle school. They get caught up in the athletic side, right? So what would you tell a child, a kid, where their identity is more so focused on that, and they're not even worried about the grades. They're not even worried about the education because they feel like, hey, you know what, I can catch a football, or I can shoot a shot, or I can hit a baseball, or kick a ball, whatever the case is. And so at the end of the day, I'm more so focusing on that. That's my priority. Like, you want me to do these assignments, but they're not really important. My dream is to make it to the NFL. So what you're telling me doesn't matter. What would you say to a kid that because I've had some kids even say they not kids but young adults listen to this podcast, and I know this would be beneficial for them. So as you as a teacher, what is something you could say to encourage them, or just have them think a little differently?
Definitely as an educator, you, it's a matter of developing core values for a young person.
Mm,
Whatever excellence you want to bring on the field, you need to bring it in every area of your life, every area of
mm,
your life, even if it's putting your best foot forward. Your personal best needs to be represented. It can't just be represented in one thing. The means to an end comes from what you do in the classroom. Now, you may not produce A's, you may not produce B's, but you want to put your best, you want your personal best to be out there because it's a representation of who you are as a person.
mm,
Even if you don't like it, even if you think, I just want to play football, well, that's great. But, you know, in this formative time of your life, you want to be the best or make sure you put your best foot forward in everything. It speaks
mm.
volumes to you as a person when you're able to do that. I tutored many athletes in my entire life, whether it's from high school all the way up, and I think it's really important that it to embrace that character, uh, to know that they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting and all the things that they're doing is going to speak to themselves as a champion, and
Mm.
that's what being an athlete is all about. Is having the champion spirit to go out and do your best in everything.
I like that. So,
Yeah.
how do you, as a teacher, I'm sure a father too, family man, all that. You you're so invested into the kids, right? Rightfully so, right? And there's times where it can be draining, I'm sure. I'm speaking on just because I've mentored kids. I haven't been a teacher necessarily, but I've been a tutor. I've literally had a youth program that I put together, and just things like that I was so invested, and it was stressful at times because I want something for them so bad, right? So how do you prioritize though your mental health in those times? Like, how do you prioritize just making sure you're prioritizing your self care? Because you do have the demands of being a teacher, and whatever else you got going on, right? There's so many other things. You're not just a teacher. There's so many more things you are. There's so many different people. There's so many different things that you have to deal with, that no one else maybe knows about, or that you don't necessarily share with the world, right? So how do you kind of handle that?
To answer that question, that's which is a great question because that's where I'm dealing with right now, finding the balance of self care, mental health, or just really taking care of making sure that I have some sort of longevity. It I learned some hard lessons along the way to get to this place. One of the things I realized was I worked a lot
Mm,
and didn't have a healthy balance of vacation, didn't have a healthy balance of really taking care of myself and being present when I needed to be present for family.
mm,
Uh, One of the things that has helped me, believe it or not, is social media. It was an outlet
mm,
where I could express, particularly share stories about work. Um, I working with even in some of the sports groups I'm an admin of at least one. Um, Being able to socialize with those young cats is has been really great too. That gives me some balance. It keeps me young, um, but also realizing that as I get older, particularly as I lost my mother in 2016, and I
mm,
lost my father in 2021, and even
mm,
during the course of that time, not finding the space to grieve properly. I don't think I did. I don't think I have. But also realizing that I'm of the age where even people I've gone to high school with are starting to pass away, or colleagues of mine are leaving this world right now. And so realizing that, being able to find that break, to find that area where I can really balance my life, was a wake up call, particularly
Mm.
within the last 4 years of my life. Um, the necessary balance for my sanity, for my self care, for my mental health. It really came to a hilt when about 4 years ago, um, I wasn't feeling well. It was right at the beginning of, in fact, it was right at the beginning of about 2019. Um, I wasn't feeling very good, and I went to the doctor, and they found out that my blood sugar was way sky high.
Mm.
In fact, it was, most healthy blood sugars, 120 or lower, or like the 90s to 120. Mine was 500.
Wow.
Um, the doctor said, "Look, diabetes runs in your family. You probably got it from your mother, and if you don't do something about it now, you're not going to be on this planet for very long." So
Mm.
that meant a life change, a lifestyle change. I mean, it was a drastic lifestyle change. Going to the gym more regularly, not drinking juice or sugary drinks, and staying away from sodas, staying away from desserts, no candy, no sweet. I mean, I dropped it like a bad habit.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, losing a lot of weight in the process, drinking a gallon of water a day. I only drink tea and water. When I do drink tea, it's unsweetened.
Mm.
Um, but that's where it started. And then when my father got sick about a year later, uh, and he had his cancer advance, he had lung cancer. Um, it was surreal to me when you lose your parents. It's it's a wild. You can't make any sense of it because especially my father. You think they're going to live forever, and that's not the case. And then when you
Mm.
start losing colleagues and people that people that are close to you who are of your age group, it it's 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 surreal.
Yeah.
Um, and it made me think, I didn't do enough celebrating. I
Mm.
could celebrate a child, I could celebrate people in my family, but to really celebrate life and to do more things that didn't involve being in a classroom or being at some conference or anything like that just was far few between. And it's probably why it's one of the biggest goals I have for 2020. In fact, it is the biggest goal I have for 2025, is to really live life more abundantly, that covers a spectrum of things besides my work.
Mm.
Uh, it's the biggest remedy for self care I could possibly give myself. I've already made the pivots and changes in my health, which, by the way, as a black man, all black men, please go get the colonoscopy. Go
Mm.
get your physicals. Go get your regular checkups. Do not skimp on that. Make sure your heart's okay. Make sure your head's okay. Even just 2 years ago, I got heat stroke, helping out my brother-in-law, and I was in the hospital. They had to call the
Mm.
ambulance because I passed out a couple times, and I was out in the heat. Went to the hospital. They did a CAT scan. They did X-rays. They checked out everything. I didn't have any
Mm.
damage, nothing, no vascular damage. It was saving grace of God that I was all right.
Mm.
Um, but these are the things, you don't want these little warning signs to come up. You want to definitely take all the preventative measures you can to take care of yourself, and you definitely owe it to your family, your children, the people who need you, who you're really important to do all those things. And it's been a major priority for me, especially as I see life changing as I get older, to make these drastic pivots, to make sure I'm smiling more,
Mm.
laughing more, living life, taking a vacation, going dropping off from social media and getting away from my screens for a while.
I like that. Like, how did you? Because like you said, you lost. Unfortunately, you lost both of your parents, and it sounds like with your dad too. It kind of it shocked you even more. So how like because you even said like, hey, it's important for us to get those checkups, which we don't. So I guess my first question is, why do you think, especially our culture? I think men do this in general, but I know for sure the black culture, we don't want to go to the hospital. We think we could do it ourselves, right? Why do you think that is? And then do you think you was able to, because you said you was so busy working and stuff, do you think you was able to, I guess, appreciate or celebrate your parents enough while they was here? And then is that something now you're conscious of as a father to make sure that you're able to celebrate with your child? I know it was a loaded question.
No, that's a perfect question because right away, as soon as you were saying that, thinking about my child and my godchildren, I have several of them,
Mm,
and even students at at my work at the moment. Like if I anything happened to me today or tomorrow, a lot of them one would be wondering, well, what happened to Dr. Flagg? Why
mm,
he's gone? What do you mean he's gone? It would be surreal
yeah.
for them. But how would they finish? How would they move on with all the zany projects that we were working on?
Mm,
It's just I owe it to myself to take
yeah.
care of myself. To if it's solvable, if it was preventable, I I have to take the steps to make sure that I'm healthy, um, and no one else is going to do it. No one else is going to, you know, when you're a grown man, when you're a grown adult, no one's going to be on your back. You need to go take care of that. You need to go do that. And
Yeah.
life, we make this joke all the time online that life comes at you fast. Yeah, it does. It really, really does. Uh, I'm one of the friends I'm thinking about now. A couple of years ago, it was last year. I was talking to him in the summertime. It was another educator like myself who's big on technology, and we were ending the summer. We were all talking about what we were going to do that summer, and laughing and joking in a text thread. Next thing I know, that was June. Next thing I know, in August, I'm seeing posts on his Facebook from his wife through his account
Mm,
telling us that he's in the final stages of his cancer battle. None
mm,
of us knew he had that.
mm.
He joked with us just 3 months ago. No one knew that he was battling cancer. I had to call her right away.
Wow.
And these are the things you just never know about people. And then, when he passed, that was hard. This was someone I had known for many years. This was someone I really respected, someone I loved. And I kept saying, I really wish I'd known. I would have prayed for him. I would have given something to him while he was still alive. And his
Mm,
wife was saying, you did give him a lot. I see all the little pictures where you were all having fun and you celebrated him while he was
mm,
here, even though you didn't know that he was in his battle with what he was battling. But those are the kind of wake up calls I'm talking about,
mm.
especially like I said, for black males who really need to take care of themselves to make sure that they're doing right. Don't let the ego get to you or feeling like you're Superman that you can't go see a doctor. See a doctor. Check yourself out. Take all those preventative measures. Take your vitamins. Research. I'm really big on that because there's a lot of misinformation out there on the internet. Things that aren't entirely true that maybe people joke about, that someone said on YouTube that YouTube University diploma is not going to get you far if you don't get the facts.
True.
Have your information literacy lined up about the facts about diseases and conditions and ways to think about your genetics, your family history. You got to look into all that
Mm,
because I knew my mother had diabetes, but
mm,
the fact that she had passed it to, it's some of those things, genetically that gets passed to your children from your mother is another thing. And to think, there were a lot of different things I could have avoided in the process of when I was diagnosed and when my A1C was off the charts. And being able to make the pivot that I needed to catch the warning signs.
Mm.
But it's important. I hope I didn't talk your ear off with my answer.
No, no.
I'm just coming from the experience that, just I want to live so badly right now, but I want to live in a way that's joyful and that imbues and reflects something that's meaningful to the people who I know love me and or I mean something to them. I just don't want to walk out or step out on this away from this earth knowing that I could have done better as a person in that aspect of my
Mm.
life.
No, I like that. No, you answered it perfectly. Like I said, I know I gave a loaded question. So I'll close out with probably be two-part question again. But my first question to you is, what legacy do you hope to leave behind in your professional life? And then what is something you could share with someone that is dealing with the same? 'Cause especially as men, right? We want to work, we want to provide, we want to be the best at whatever we're going to do. So,
Right.
because we hear that all the time, there's no such thing as balance, right? Hey, if you want to be great, you got to have great work ethic, right? And so, what is something though you could share though as far as being aware of those burnouts? So, I guess my first question is just, what legacy would you want to leave behind when you finally do retire or step away, whatever, at least from teaching? And then, what is something that they can look out for the burnout signs and what they can do about it?
One I have an expression that I tend to end a lot of my emails with when I'm speaking to colleagues, when I'm just talking to people in general, and that's be easy.
Mm,
And I say be easy because I have made a career personally and professionally of being very hard on myself. I
mm,
will end up taking responsibility for a lot of things that I probably shouldn't take responsibility for, take on the weight of things. I've done it all my life, even as a
mm,
child, feeling like this went wrong because of something I did or something I said.
mm,
And because you don't have anything else to say, you just say, I'm sorry, because you wish you could make it right somehow. And I think that's probably why I'm such a proponent of restorative practices in school. You want to be
mm,
reflective and you want to find the way to make things right. If you've done something wrong to somebody else, whether it's a teacher or another peer, um, you want to make it right somehow because you really thought about it, um, the affect, the intent, and the impact of how things worked out. But you got to be easy on yourself in that process. You don't want to take all this heaviness with you. And as I'm thinking about going into 2025, there's a lot of things in the last few years that I don't want to carry with me into this next year. I've got
mm.
to be a little lighter for the wear and know that um, I got to be easy on myself and not be so hard on. Learn, gather what you can, and then just use it as a means for being more empathetic to the next person in the next situation. But
I
as
like
far
that.
as recognizing burnout, that's another big part of it. When you're easy on yourself, you're not taking so much of the responsibilities. I've been in leadership position for the last 12 years of my career. Um, One fun story I like to share, I was having a department meeting with my tech people, and one person who was recently added to my department, she said, I really just want to take as many things off your plate as possible. You've got so much going on here at the school, and there's a lot that you do. I know you think it's not a big deal, and maybe it's normalized to just kind of run around and do the things that you do. But part of having a department is being able to delegate and pass things on to us because we want to make sure you're balanced and we can take those things on so that you don't have to. And that was one of the toughest things I had to do was being able to understand what it meant to take things off my plate that I didn't need to carry. So there were certain things that I would say to myself, well, I'll just go ahead and do it. And then realize, well, no, she really wants to do, I'm going to let you, and they would be very grateful that I passed them some responsibilities. And that's the way I think work happens.
Yeah.
In your work, there's certain things that you can carry, certain battles that you could take on, and there's certain battles that you got to choose to let go because you're not letting go or letting something off the hook, but you're letting it go because you need to be lighter for yourself so you can have an easy life and things aren't so heavy and hard on you. And even after 30 years of being an educator and being an uncle, a father, a godfather, it's a lesson I'm still learning, but I'm getting better at it.
I like that, bro. No, I like that a lot because, and what you said too, especially the first one, really stuck out to me because for me, I look at it like I take on similar to what you say. I take on a lot of things, right? And maybe that's how a lot of us are wired as men. But I take on a lot of things, and I'll even apologize when there's something I didn't do, right? And I've realized over the years I'll try to help others, but those same people won't try to help me, right? Um, and so I've realized like, okay, why am I taking this on when I'm stressing myself out for no reason, right? So what you said definitely resonated with me for sure. But no, I definitely I appreciate, man. I appreciate you just hopping on it. And what I like to do for sure is I always make sure I give my guests their flowers, and I definitely want to do that for you. One, just you coming on, we didn't have to, and I hope that people that are watching or listening are inspired by this, right? And there's a lot of us that's not taking care of ourselves like we should be, and so just seeing how you was able to make that change and like, hey, I want to make sure I'm here as long as possible, and not just here. Like I'm really maxing it. I'm maxing my life right out to the best ability. I'm not just trying to be alive. I'm really trying to live, right?
Live.
And so,
Yeah.
I just want to salute you, as a father, as a teacher, as a mentor. Man, I'm just so thankful. I just see from afar, and like I said, I just wanted to reach out to you just because I'm like, man. And like I said, like I told you earlier, there's a little glimpse I see when I see online. I'm like, man, I can just tell this man is very, very knowledgeable, and so just to have your time, and I don't take it for granted. I thank you very much for it, man.
I am absolutely honored by this being with you here, Sean, because I see you. I see you move, and it's beautiful what you're doing. You've been doing this for a little while. If it's not in the form of a podcast, it's in a small group where you're sharing and being transparent yourself. And as a black man, it's beautiful to see that sort of level of transparency. You give a lot, and I pray blessings upon you and your family, and just all the things that you're doing to inspire this sort of greatness in others.
Thank you, man. I receive that. I receive that. Um, like always, guys, before we go, make sure you always. I'm sorry. I'm messing it up, y'all. Look, he had me move with that speech. He had me move. I forgot what I was gonna say, but um, remember, you don't have to be perfect, but you always have to be present. See you guys on the next one.